Well, good afternoon, and thank you all for joining us today. Today's webinar is timely and promises to share new insights into the CMMC assessment process that organizations seeking certification will be subject to. We'll hear the lessons learned from Dasha Deckwerth, who was in the initial cohort of 25 individuals selected by the CMMC accreditation body to be trained as a provisional assessor. Today's webinar is sponsored by Prevail and by Stealth ISS. Prevail makes encryption usable for everyday business by providing encrypted email that works with existing applications like Outlook or Gmail and provides encrypted file sharing that's as simple to use as Dropbox, but far more secure. Stealth ISS Group is a woman-owned, service-disabled, veteran-owned small business, or SDVO, that helps organizations navigate through complicated regulatory landscapes and provides customized risk-based solutions to enable them to address their advisory and assessment needs. So thank you to both Prevail and to Stealth ISS Group. Well, today's webinar is especially important as we get closer and closer to certain key milestones and deadlines. The new interim DFARS rule goes into effect the end of this month, signaling the start of the DoD's planned gradual rollout of CMMC. The interim rule enables DoD to include CMMC requirements in RFIs and RFPs. But the interim rule also contained a surprise, catching many off guard. It requires organizations that exchange CUI to report a score for NIST 800-171 compliance to the government before their next contract award or their next renewal. So stay tuned as our speakers share lessons learned and guidance to ensure your continued eligibility as a supplier, subcontractor, or contractor to the Department of Defense. Well, my name is Stuart Itkin, and I am CEO of Security Advisors, an independent management consultancy that helps organizations address strategic and operational cybersecurity and business issues. I was formerly Vice President of Products and Marketing at ExoStar and Global Chief Marketing Officer at the Corporate Executive Board, which is now a part of Gartner Group. Joining me today are Sanjeev Verma and Dasha Deckwerth. So Sanjeev Verma is chairman and co-founder of Prevail, a cybersecurity company that provides end-to-end encrypted email, file sharing, and storage for defense companies demanding advanced security, compliance, and ease of deployment and use. PC Magazine, the leading independent product evaluator, has selected Prevail as its editor's choice for best encrypted email and file sharing system, as well as best system for privacy. Sanjeev is a serial entrepreneur with a track record of building successful businesses, and prior to Prevail, he co-founded Arvana, which developed mobile wireless infrastructure used by leading mobile operators such as Verizon and Sprint to deliver high-speed 3G data services. Sanjeev helped grow the company from an idea to a large publicly traded company with over $500 million in annual revenue. Sanjeev earned a Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering from the Delhi College of Engineering, a Master's of Science in Electrical Engineering from the University of Rhode Island, and a Master's of Business Administration from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology's Sloan School of Management. So Sanjeev, welcome. Dasha Deckwerth is the president and founder of Stealth ISS Group and a globally recognized expert in cybersecurity operations and delivery. And with over 25 years of experience as a technology professional, Dasha has led key cybersecurity initiatives within the government and civilian sectors, where she has provided IT, security, and cyber warfare services to NATO, various United States, European Union, and Asian government agencies, as well as to multiple global commercial clients. Dasha served in the U.S. Navy and attended TUI and Trident University, where she obtained an MBA and Master's of Science in Information Technology and Management. She also completed a PhD in Cyber Warfare and National Security. And as I previously mentioned, Dasha is a provisional assessor for the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification, or CMMC, and was among the first 25 trained by the CMMC accreditation body. She also has earned numerous qualifications, including Certified Information Systems Security Professional, or CISSP, Project Management Professional, or PMP, Certified Confidentiality Officer, Counter-Espionage, Certified Chief Information Security Officer, NSA, InfoSec Assessment and Evaluation Methodology, and Payment Card Industry, or PCI, Qualified Security Auditor. So Dasha, welcome and thank you for joining us today. Well, the agenda today, we'll start with Dasha, who's had the opportunity to read the book, What to Assess When You're Assessing. We'll hear her key takeaways and lessons learned from completing the Provisional Assessor training. With the interim rule going into effect at the end of the month, Dasha is going to share what actions DIB organizations should be doing now to meet the requirements of the interim rule and to ensure their ongoing eligibility to participate on government contracts. Then Sanjeev Verma will explain requirements for sharing and exchanging CUI in the relationship to specific CMMC practice families and describe how Prevail can provide an expedited path to compliance. We'll leave time at the end of the session to answer questions from attendees, and you can enter your questions into the Q&A tab of the viewer at any time. So Dasha, let me start by asking you a question. What were your key takeaways from having completed the CMMC AB Provisional Assessor training? And is there a clear message that you can share with all of us today?
Thank you so much, Stuart. Great to be here. Yeah, very good questions, and I will get into the details during the presentation. But one thing I would like to point out here, the key areas, is CMMC is not a checklist. It's completely different than what we've known from NIST. It will require a cultural change on just about any company to bring security in place, because this is not about being compliant, it's about being secure, it's about securing the data. That is the key priority. So it's the right approach from a security perspective, but I think it will also catch a lot of companies off guard here. So with that, I would like to jump straight in. So CMMC and how does it impact you as a business? So the interim rule has been rolled out and takes effect on December 1st. And as you probably know, CMMC is being rolled out for the next 5 years. So the interim rule here is to help companies and help the DoD also slowly transition into the 5-year plan, when in 5 years, every company, every DIB that is working with the DoD is supposed to have the CMMC certification, and all contracts will have the verbiage phrased into it. So right now, if you are currently in working with the DoD and you have a contract that is being renewed or something being changed to it, or you're bidding on a new contract, you are required to have an entry for your NIST compliance in place with the Supplier Performance Risk System, or the SPRS. As a basic minimum that is required or the minimum requirement is the basic certification, which is the self-assessment. As Stuart mentioned, it is based on a number score. It's probably very similar to what it is very similar to what you have done in the past with the NIST 800-171. If you are required to have based on the contract, either a medium or high assessment, you will either for the medium one be required to answer some additional questions with the DoD, submit your security plan. And if it's a high assessment that you require, you will expect the DoD to reach out to you and do the assessment with you or on behalf of you. But one thing is key: if you are working with the DoD, please get into the system and make sure that you are updated and your current NIST score is in there. Right now, even the main prime contractors, they're already starting to ask their subcontractors to be registered there. So if you have not done an internal assessment recently, please make sure you get that done, because this is critical for you to continue still doing business while you slowly transition into the CMMC.
And Dasha, if I can just ask a quick question that has been asked, the need to be able to report into SBRS, does that affect organizations that do not receive CUI and are not currently, have not currently had the DFARS rule flow down, or just to those that have that requirement today?
It applies to all. So it's not just CUI, it also FCI. So federal contract information. So if you have any kind of contract with the DoD, FCI falls into scope here, just like it does for CMMC. So yes, you are required to be registered, especially if you're bidding on something new.
Great, thank you.
So now I would like to jump to what is it that I learned from the CMMC PA training. So one thing I would like to say first is the training was very insightful, and I'm considering the amount of years I spent in the industry and working with companies, it is with great pleasure to see that the DoD and the CMMC AB board are really taking this very seriously and making companies as well to take this seriously, because it is no longer a compliance thing. It's not a checkbox. It's really making sure that the whole concept of security and data protection is ingrained. So the first thing that I've learned, or the key thing, is the process and maturity level that CMMC requires that NIST didn't. So there's a pretty big gap between NIST and CMMC, and it's on the maturity level. So NIST, it's a checkbox exercise, to be honest. You can do a self-assessment. You can say, yes, I have a policy, I have a procedure, I collect logs, I'm good. CMMC takes it a step further. It's a maturity, it's not a compliance check. So you will actually have to show for CMMC that you not only have the documentation, that you're not only logging it, but you're actually living it on a day-to-day basis in your day-to-day operations as a corporation, as your departments work through their tasks that they need to do, that security is baked in. And that's part of what you will need to show during the assessment. Also, especially as you get into CMMC level 3 and above, the CMMC has incorporated 20 new requirements that are not sourced from NIST. Some of these are related to incident response, log correlations, data backup. All these are new things. So even if you have completed NIST, even by a third-party assessment, and you're going for level 3 and higher up, you need to double check to make sure that you are meeting one of those or several of those new 20 requirements that are new. And the other thing is also the maturity evidence you need to show for CMMC requirements. So far, it is stated that 6 months you will need for the evidence or for the assessment, at least 6 months worth of evidence to show the assessor that you are really have the maturity ingrained in your operations. So if, for example, I'm the auditor, I'm coming in and I'm assessing you, and 2 days before I showed up, you started collecting logs, and you show me the logs, and I ask you for, well, can you show me the logs from 3 months ago? And you say, well, I don't have it. I cannot mark you in as compliant. So those are the really key areas here where it shows that it is all about maturity here. The other thing is about methodology. I know assessors usually have, or the assessments and audits, they have certain methodology. The CMMC has very strict guidelines on how assessors need to go about what they need to collect, how they need to collect it, how to start a project, who can be involved on the assessment side, on the C3PAO side, or on your side as the business. So with that, we have to go through different steps. We have to always follow the same methodology that they're giving us. So which is a good thing, because if you get a certified assessor or even a provisional assessor or anyone who has gone through the CMMC official training, you're gonna get the same quality, which is great. So for one thing, we are required to collect evidence, and there are three ways to obtain evidence. One is through interview, one is through observation, and the other one is through test. In order to comply with, for an assessment, we have to collect at least 2 of those 3 for each one of the bullet points in CMMC. So if you, for example, if we interview one of your IT directors and you said, yep, we're changing passwords every 90 days, that's fine, but we still need to either observe or test it to mark you as you're meeting the requirements. So one takeaway here is, and we've seen it, or I've seen it personally in the last few months doing these pre-assessments or gap analysis for a lot of companies, is getting ready and collecting all the evidence and having the documents ready. That is really key. The other one is QA reviews. So when you as a company want to do an official certification, you will have to work with a C3PAO company. Stealth ISS Group will become one. We have the application in place. Right now, there is no C3PAO companies out there yet. The first ones will be made available, I think, hopefully by January next year. So with a C3PAO company, that will be your point of contact to get the certification. They assign an assessor like myself to it, and we come in place. So on site, we do the assessments, we collect all the evidence, we write a report, and we write a recommendation for what kind of certification, which level you should get. Once we have that, we give it over to the C3PAO company. They have to do an internal QA review to make sure that all the evidence collected was collected correctly, that it's comprehensive, that it meets the methodology, the standards, and that everything is the way it's supposed to be done based on the methodology. Once they're satisfied and happy, they will give it to the CMMC accreditation board. And they're the ones that will go through the same QA review, just a little bit expedited way. And they will, based on the recommendation from the assessor and the feedback, they will then assign the certification to you as a company. So it's not us, it's not the assessor or the C3PAO, it's the AB board that will set that certification for you. Now, you've probably seen a lot of companies out there and a lot of contractors that will help you get through the CMMC process, will do consulting, all of that stuff. It's all great. There are limited numbers of people that have actually gone through the CMMC official training. So be aware of that. But also one thing that is very clear, and we've got a lot of questions about that, is there cannot be a conflict of interest between who helps you on identifying gaps or helps you remediate or provides any kind of CMMC related managed services and the company that will actually assess you. So in other words, the company that will assess you cannot audit or assess their own homework. So if you have us, for example, or me come in and help you with a assessment or a gap analysis or remediation or a managed security service like SOC, you will not be able to hire us back to do the assessment for you. And then the biggest thing, a bottleneck. So right now, the CMMC is prioritizing who gets the certification based on the contract that they're working on or bidding on or about to bid on. The reason that is right now, there are, I think next week, there will be a total of 75 provisional assessors that can do assessments. There will be, out of those 75 provisional assessors, there will be assigned also 32 C3PAO companies that are currently going through the background checks, the certifications, the training, and all of that good stuff. So there will be a very limited number of, at least initially, of assessors and companies to get you to the official certification. So if you're currently working on a contract or about to bid on a contract that will have CMMC verbiage on there, the only way to get you expedited or get you prioritized to get to your certification is if you reach out to the CMMC AB board and let them know exactly what RFP you're working on to get you through this whole process.
And Dasha, if somebody wants to get in line to be able to go through the assessment process, then can they reach out to a C3PO or an assessor, or do they need to go to the CMMC AB to request a certification?
So right now we are still in the provisional assessment phase. During the provisional assessment phase, you will have to reach out through the CMMC AB board directly. Once we get out of this provisional assessment phase or provisional phase, which it looks like it's going to be December, at least for the assessors. For the C3PAOs, I'm expecting it to be January. So once we're out of the provisional phase, you will be able to reach out directly to the C3PAO companies, and the CMMC AB board will have a marketplace listed with all people, all companies that have been trained, that have been certified, and that are C3PAOs. So you will have all that available to you and reach out directly to them. Good. Let's go to the next slide, please. All right. So critical steps. What do we all need to do now? So the first thing is the interim defaults rule. That's the first thing you need to address, is get your assessment. If you have not recently done it, or you have not done it at all, please conduct the assessment. You can either do it in-house if you have the staff, or you can ask any security consulting company or us as staff to go and do it for you. Make sure it is uploaded and maintained in the SPRS system. As I said, primes are already pushing the interim rule to their subcontractors, so you want to make sure you don't lose out. And especially if you're bidding on new contracts or your DoD contract is about to be changed, you will need to be in that system. So that is the first step. If you have done your internal assessment and you have access to your SPRS system, it should only take you a couple hours and you'd be good to go. On the CMMC level 1 side, so there are 15 basic safeguard requirements, and honestly, most companies probably do it already. There is not a lot of evidence required for you to have paperwork or any kind of logs or anything. So that would be a very quick, high level, I would say, fix or certification that most companies will have to go through. And again, CMMC level 1 and 2 deal with FCI, so Federal Contract Information. CUI level 3 and above is about CUI only, or sorry, CUI and FCI. Level 2 is a stepping stone. Now, I always get the question of, would it make sense if we go certify ourselves for level 1, then level 2, and eventually our goal is to get to level 3? Well, technically, yes, but consider each time you go through a certification, you will need to get a third party in to get you, or C3PAO in to certify you. These CMMC certifications are not in-house. You have to get a C3PAO to do it. So each time you ask for a certification, you have to pay for it. My recommendation is, if your goal is level 3 and you're already dealing with CUI, then go straight to level 3, because a lot of there is overlap. There is absolutely no point of splitting it up into phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. It's going to make the project too complicated, too difficult also from an implementation, and it's going to cost you as a company also more than if you go straight into a level 3. So level 2 as a stepping stone has the policies and procedures. So there you need to start really making sure that you are collecting the evidence. It's starting to be about maturity level. And CMMC level 3, that's really all about protecting the CUI. You have 110 security requirements. You have 20 additional practices in there that do not come from CMMC. And you have the 3 different processes in there. So here you really have to show that everything from level 1, level 2 is already integrated in your corporate DNA, and that everything that you have on paper and everything that CMMC requires, you're performing it on a day-to-day basis. So that's the key. Let's go to the next slide, please. So now I'm pretty sure you're asking yourself, okay, where do I start? What do I need? So the first thing, my recommendation, or I would not even call it a recommendation, it's a must. This is not a compliance check. This is really a maturity, and this is about being secure and safeguarding data. It will require a security culture change. If your company has not baked security into your culture, please do that now. It requires the mindset from every single one of your employees to understand that this is about security. This is not a one-time exercise to pass an audit, get a certification. This is day-to-day secure operations. Second, most important thing is to get started now. And I cannot emphasize this more than I'm doing here now. It's get started now, because even if you're ready today or tomorrow, if you get everything ready and you start collecting your logs and everything, it will take you 6 months to get ready for the CMMC certificate or assessment. If you are not collecting any logs now, it will take you 6 months before you're even ready to have the evidence. If you know we already have the evidence and you're good to go and you think you're good, great. But a lot of companies, what we've seen, they are not there yet, at least not in every single one of those areas. So with that being said, what our recommendation is, and my personal as well, is creating a gap analysis. I know a lot of you probably have done the NIST assessment, you know where you are. Some of you probably know you have some gaps, but NIST and CMMC are a little bit different, especially if you're going level 3 or level 2 and above. Do a gap analysis, identify what is missing, do the remediation. Then an assessment readiness review, and the CMMC board suggests to do that as well. A assessment readiness review is where you can either do it in-house or you can get a company like ours to come in and help you compile all the documentation that you will need for the assessment, for the certification, so that you can then literally just hand it over to the auditor and say, here's everything, and please get started. Because that will help you in several ways. You will have first of all documentation ready. So the assessors will be ready to get out of your office spaces quickly, and it will cost you a lot less because you will not have to wait and spend time on the assessors on your side as well to collect all the evidence throughout the audit. And after the assessment readiness review, you should know, am I ready to go for the assessment, yes or no? What you will need, number 4, is tools. So people and know-how. If you have an internal IT team or compliance staff that can help do the assessment, walk you through it, do the gap analysis, great. Please get started on it. If you're not sure, especially about the CMMC nuances, work with a CMMC professional assessors, somebody like me or one of my PA colleagues, or even one of the registered practitioners that are out there that have gone through the official CMMC AV board training. We all know what really you need for the CMMC assessments. So take advantage of that. Policies and procedures, you will need those. Some of you probably have most of those already, but there are some nuances in there that are really CMMC specific. So if you have your internal team, have them review those. If you're not sure, do reach out to us, to reach out to me or any of my PA colleagues or RPO colleagues to really help you and get it done the first time for you. Tools and services, especially as you get to CMMC level 2 and above, you will need tools and technology. For example, Prevail encryption, and Sanjeev will talk about that. It's really all about protecting FCI CUI data. You will need to have encryption. You will need to have control over where the data is, how it's being backed up, who you're sending it to, who has access to it. And then of course you got the other areas that you probably may be doing, maybe have it outsourced, like 24/7 security operation services, incident response, threat hunting, patch management. All this is key. If you're already doing that, great. If you have gaps, there are companies like ours and others that will be able to take that off your plate and do it for you in a way that you can meet the CMMC requirements. So the question then is, okay, who do you reach out to? And we had that first question already. If you are going through especially now during the provisional phase, if you are going through or bidding on an RFP, right now that has CMMC verbiage on there, please do reach out to the CMMC accreditation board directly. If you have, if you want to do an internal assessment, gap analysis, remediation, or an assessment readiness review, you can come talk to us. You can go talk to any of the provisional assessors or RPs to help you jump through those hoops. We are here, we've gone through the training, so more than happy to help you. You can also anytime reach out to me if you have a question. I'm here, my goal is really to help make sure that all of us understand and safeguard the data that we're dealing with, because after all, it is our nation, and we are working with sensitive data in some way, shape, or form. So you can always reach out to me either here via email or on LinkedIn.
And Dasha, just, I mean, from the gap assessments that you've done and the clients that you've worked with, how caught up are those organizations with respect to NIST 800-171? Are most of them kind of close to 100% or 110 controls fully implemented, or are they somewhat less than that?
So we've done, for the last 18 months, we've been focusing a lot on NIST 800-171, and I would say for almost 12 months now, we've been also, especially as the first CMMC drafts came out, we started mapping and helping companies guide them into where they are in respect to CMMC. And overall, I have to say, I have, at least the assessments I have done, I have yet to see one company that has met every single one area 100%. And this is where I need to mention it here, is NIST allows you to do a POEM. CMMC does not allow you to do that. It's a pass or fail. So that's why I'm putting a lot of emphasis on the gap analysis and the remediation. It is required. I have not seen a company that, even when they came to us and said, hey, we have done NIST level 800-171 last year. I think we got pretty much most of it done, but we want you to do a gap analysis for CMMC level 3. Well, following the methodology that we were given by the CMMC AB board during training, that company did not even meet CMMC level 1.
Wow. And so it sounds like organizations that want to be prepared to go through the certification process really do need to start now, recognizing that there's time involved to really remediate the gaps that exist today, and then to be able to accumulate 6 months worth of evidence to be able to then go through that certification process.
Yes. Yeah.
Good. And I know one question that's come up a number of times, that if we go back to the interim rule and the reporting of 800-171 score to SPRS, how long does that last for, or how often does somebody need to go through and refresh that score in SPRS?
So minimum is 3 years. So every 3 years, but especially if you get into the medium or high, the DoD will require, or will put it, depending on what the contractors ask you to do it, maybe once, or they may do it ad hoc as they see fit.
Got it. Good. I know, and kind of moving along, again, the point about needing to start now, you've certainly emphasized it. We hear it almost from everyone. Katie Arrington, when she talks, says that companies need to start now and that they need to move deliberately. And I think you've helped us to understand why they need to start now. One of the more challenging requirements within NIST 800-171 and within CMMC is encryption. The need to encrypt data in transit and data at rest. Encryption requirements are woven throughout CMMC. So Sanjeev, how is Prevail taking the cost and complexity out of satisfying these requirements as they relate to encryption?
Well, thanks very much, Stuart, and thanks, Dasha. So I'd like to kind of walk you through some of this in the form of a short presentation and a dialogue with the audience. So with your permission, I'm going to go and share my screen because I think that's the most helpful way to provide guidance on answering your question. So as Dasha mentioned in her talk very eloquently, the whole point of CMMC is to protect controlled and classified information. And for most companies, controlled and classified information is stored in the form of files that have design information, etc. They're stored whether on your computer or in the cloud, etc. And then you shared that information generally in the form of electronic mail. So a couple of points need to be made when it comes to the CMMC. So when you look at CMMC, there are 17 domains that ask you, how and ask you how are you protecting that CUI. So it's all about access control, asset management, and so on. And for most companies, your head's going to spin when you look at these, because each of these then maps to another 130 to 150 controls. And then what's more complex is that you say, look, today I use O365 or Gmail or Dropbox or OneDrive to store my CUI or my design information and share it using electronic mail. And none of those systems is compliant with CMMC. So you can't use O365, you can't use Gmail. So what are you supposed to do? It poses an extraordinarily complex challenge, but fortunately it can be simplified. So as Dasha explained to you, if you're striving for level 3, and most of my comments are now geared towards level 3 compliance and beyond, because that's when you're storing, sharing, and handling controlled and classified information. The way to do it is by doing two things. One, you get an appropriate tool that has the appropriate security, encryption, etc., to be able to handle the storage and sharing of controlled and classified information. And if you use an appropriate tool, and Prevail is one of them, and I'll tell you a little bit more about it, then the boxes in green that you're seeing over here, basically you check the box of that. You say, okay, my information by use of that tool gets me compliance to these domains. But the tool itself is not sufficient to go and be compliant. You need appropriate policies and procedures. Again, a point that Dasha made. So if you then look at the boxes in yellow, these are the boxes such as incident response that are checked off by use of an appropriate tool along with the correct policies and procedures. So you write some policies and procedures, you use the right tools, and now you've got compliance to the boxes in yellow. And then the final boxes in sort of light blue on the screen are the boxes that simply require policies and procedures. So as a way to simplify it, your tasks to achieve CMMC level 3 compliance is generally centered around acquiring and starting using an appropriate security tool that has the right levels of encryption, etc., and implementing appropriate policies and procedures. And again, working with an appropriate assessor is the path to get started on that. So then you say, okay, well, everybody uses O365 and Gmail. What are these tools that can get you to level 3? And they're broadly speaking two choices. Microsoft offers a tool called Microsoft GCC High. Many of you, if not most, have probably heard of it. And another option is what we provide from Prevail. Both these tools are used for storing and sharing CUI. So what are the differences? Well, the Microsoft GCC High is an extraordinarily expensive tool, as many of you are discovering as you get into conversations. And why is that? So as its fundamental strategy, what Microsoft GCC High asks you to do is to say, look, O365 G Suite are not compliant. We want you to rip them, remove them from your organization's systems, and then replace them with GCC High. And we want you to do that for all employees. Just the process of ripping and replacing requires months of disruption, usually 3 to 4 months. And again, you need a consultant to help you plan that. That is an expensive proposition. So the consulting to rip and replace usually costs somewhere between $30,000 to $100,000. And then you got to buy a much more expensive GCC license for all the employees in the company. By contrast, Prevail is about a tenth, typically 75%, but usually as low as a tenth, 90% lower in price. And how do we do that? We do that by saying no need to replace your O365 or G Suite. Keep them, simply overlay them with Prevail, and the process of overlaying them with Prevail happens in a matter of a few hours, typically a day. And so that's what gives you the cost advantage. The second important thing is many of your companies are doing only part of your business with the Department of Defense. So unlike GCC, which says put GCC for every employee, we simply say deploy to only those users that handle CUI. So it's a combination of these two that leads to a significantly lower price. And then the final issue is about security. Certainly GCC offers an appropriate compliant security, but it is a legacy system. It's sort of like O365, but it stores its information on a more secure cloud. But the information still, vulnerable to an attack on the cloud. It's still vulnerable to attack on your server. If your password's breached, you get compromised. If your admin's breached, you're compromised. Prevail, on the other hand, uses the modern construct of end-to-end encryption. Again, this is what provides you with protections where even if your password's compromised, you're secure. Even if your server's compromised, you're secure. If the data is stolen from the server, it's just encrypted gibberish. And even if your admin's compromised, you're secure. And I'm going to just share with you quickly what end-to-end encryption is about. So in an end-to-end encrypted system, your emails and files, when they're on Prevail, will be encrypted right on your device, as this little animation is showing. And they will be stored encrypted on the server, which for Prevail is AWS GovCloud, and will be only decrypted by the designated recipient. Nobody, not even Prevail, not even AWS, has the ability to look at unencrypted information in the cloud, which is in contrast with GCC. So because of that, this represents the absolute gold standard for security. And that's why the NSA, as many of you are familiar, is now advocating end-to-end encryption as its #1 criteria for protecting information for both government agencies and folks that are doing business. This is their guidance from April 2020. So you will ask now, okay, how does this thing work where even though O365 is not compliant, you say I can hold on to it and achieve compliance? And instead of trying to describe it in words, let me just demonstrate it for you. So here's your Outlook. And this is how most of you are sending your emails. As I mentioned, with Prevail, we say you keep access to it. In your Outlook inbox, anybody can send emails. The messages are obviously not encrypted. If somebody steals your O365 password, it can be compromised, etc. When you join Prevail, and that process takes minutes, literally, to do so, it adds an encrypted inbox to your Outlook with the same email address. You don't need a different email address. And this is where all of the emails that are compliant with CMMC come in, and you interact with them just as you're used to. You just open up the email. Here's Orly sending me an invite for this seminar. I can go and reply to it. And that's basically all there is to it. There's nothing that I want to do else over here. So how do you send the message? Just as simply as you're used to. So you can compose a new email. Notice, because you've got O365, the message by default is not encrypted. But the moment you start typing the names of the people in your organization or outside the organization that do need to have CUI, the message becomes encrypted. So here I'm sending a message from Alice to Ed Murphy. The moment I typed Ed's email, the message switched to encrypted, and I'm going to go and say demo, and here it can be CUI, but it can also be ITAR data. So that's all you need to do, and you send the message. Suppose you're an organization that is on Google, say it was Ed Murphy. This is Ed's normal inbox, and obviously it's non-compliant with CMMC. But just like O365, when they join Prevail, and they can join for free, it adds a secure messages tab, and this is where the encrypted message came in, the one that I just sent out. So if you have an attachment that has CUI or ITAR data, it just goes encrypted end to end. And if you send a message to somebody who's outside your organization for the first time, they can join for free. It's a freemium system. So the first part that Prevail allows you to do is with end-to-end encryption, share your CUI and ITAR. The second part of it is storing CUI. And over there, Prevail is again a very simple system. So here's my computer. Prevail looks like a OneDrive or a Dropbox. So you'll see a folder, again, with your same email address as your criteria to store and share CUI. And you just create all the folders that you have that contain CUI underneath it. And I'm going to show this in, again, a live demonstration. I am going to mirror my phone onto the screen over here. And that should take just a few seconds to do so. You see on the left side is my phone. And on your phone, Prevail is an app. It has biometric authentication. So here's my Face ID. And this is our friend Alice. These are the emails again that you have that were CUI compliant. But notice at the bottom it says Drive. So when you click that, you will see a replica of all of the folders that you created for CUI on the computer. So let's see how easy it is to encrypt something. So let's say you got a new Navy project, you create a folder, there's nothing in there. I basically go and open the same folder on the computer, on my phone, there's nothing there. And let's say you got some design information, here's a PDF. All you need to do is simply drag and drop it. When you drag and drop it, the information is automatically encrypted, uploaded, and you will see instantly made available to you on your phone, on your iPad, whether it's on the iPhone or Android device. And you can further, let's say you want to share it with suppliers or other members of the team, you can do so from the phone. Again, here's my phone. All I do is click the little arrow on the right, say share, and enter the email address of the person you want to share with, and then set appropriate permissions. If you want the person you're sharing with to be able to edit that information, make versions of it, you set it to edit and share. But if you're sharing information that you don't want anybody to even download or make any changes to, you simply set it to view only, and all they can do with it is just look at it in a browser and nothing else. You can do the same thing on the computer. Again, it's as you are used to, simply say right-click share. It opens up a browser interface, and you again type the name of the entity that you're sharing with, and that's all there is to it. You can also basically set a timeline for which you share. So it basically withdraws the information, destroys the keys, and wipes off the information, say after 30 days. And also for those of you that are admins, it's got a whole slew of capabilities that provide you with protection and compliance. So for example, everything is logged. You can set up a trusted community, by which we mean you can say CUI can only go between my organization and the domains of my partners. So even if somebody tries to send CUI outside the trusted community, the information won't go out, and nor can somebody try to send you information from outside to try and phish and spoof you into your trusted community. So that's a very quick overview of how the system sort of works. For those of you that are entering into the self-assessment phase, it ought to be a matter of an hour where you can basically go and put the system in place. It's a really inexpensive system, and it boosts your self-assessment score. And again, is one of the leading systems, particularly for small to medium businesses, for you to be achieving CMMC compliance. And as Dasha said, you need to do so for a period of time, 6 months, in order to become compliant. So again, if you're looking for systems that get you on the step towards both self-assessment and on the path towards your 6 months of evidence, Prevail offers an opportunity. So that's what I wanted to share in terms of how we help and team up with Dasha and others. And again, for some of you, GCC High may be an appropriate tool, and for those, Dasha and folks like her who are CMMC accredited assessors or experts in the field, they'll recommend the appropriate tools to you. So that was a little bit of an overview of the process of getting to CMMC level 3 compliance holistically.
Sanjeev, one of the questions that came in early, and I'll repeat it, but I think that you've kind of answered it through this, was, can I meet CMMC level 3 with Microsoft Office 365 commercial rather than GCC High? And I think what you've just shared with us is the answer is yes, but the route to being able to do that is through an application like Prevail.
Yes. So if you are just trying to use O365 on its own and no Prevail in there, no, you cannot meet compliance with CMMC. And Microsoft will tell you that. I mean, that's a position that they have taken, and there are plenty of slides and information that they provide. So the options to you, if you want to go and say, I want to continue to use O365, is one that I shared with you. But if you want to go with the Microsoft recommended route, what they will say is plan for 4 months, get rid of O365, replace it with GCC High, and that certainly puts you on a path towards CMMC level 3 compliance.
Very good. And we've had a lot of questions that have come in from the audience, and we'll try to take a few of those now. I know for those that we don't get to, Orly is going to be following up with an email to all attendees with additional information, a link to a replay of this webinar, and as I said, other information. But a question that has come up by a number of people relates to cost, and how much does an assessment cost? And related to this, what is the level of effort in a gap? And I think the two are related because, my view is that the cost is probably more in the getting ready for an organization than it is in actually going through the assessment process. But Dasha, can you give us a feel for just the level of effort and perhaps the investment that an organization should be prepared to make in going through a gap assessment, the remediation, and then what about the time and cost of going through the assessment process itself?
Okay. It is really difficult because here's a couple things that I want to point out. So let's start with the certification, the official assessment. So the cost there will depend on a couple things. So what level, of course, you are requiring, on the methodology and the QA, on the methodology that the CMMC AB board and the DoD has set aside is, depending on level 1, you need 1 assessor. Level 2, you need at least 2 people that will do the assessment, and level 3, you will need 3 people. Not all need to be the same qualification and level, but they all need to be CMMC trained. Also, it really depends on what your scope is. And this is the biggest thing that I'm seeing right now is nobody really knows what their scope is and nobody has it documented. So right now we're working, even though when companies come to us and say, hey, can you do a pre-gap assessment, just kind of a dry run for a CMMC certification. And the first thing we always run into is, what's your scope? Do you have a scope document? Do you have anything? And even during the certification process, scoping is a key part of the phase. That is it really depends on you as a company. Do you have the answers? Do you know where your COI is? And how big is your scope? So if your scope, for example, is 150 offices throughout the US, that's going to cost a lot more than a small business that only has 1 office and limits the scope of COI and FCI data to, let's say, 3 people out of this whole office and only has it on 15 different assets versus 100. So that's one key thing, but it really starts with the scope. And one question I'm always getting is it possible to segment the the FCI CUI scope out? And my answer to that is yes. I see a lot of companies that are currently, especially the larger ones, that are currently putting creating a separate enclave for FCI data. So they have their own infrastructure and a set amount of people that can access FCI data. Now, FCI data, level 1, very straightforward. And then there's creating a separate enclave for CUI data. That will be level 3, 4, or 5, depending on what contract you're working on, what is required. So suddenly they have a smaller scope to get that certified, smaller amount of, or less amount of technology investment, overhead, people to manage that enclave rather than an entire organization across the US. So unfortunately, I can't really give numbers, but I know in general an assessment, I would say up to level 3, a small business, anywhere from, if it's one office, level 1, maybe 2 weeks, and can go all the way to 12 weeks. But it also depends on how you collaborate with us as the auditors. Do you have the evidence available for us? Are you creating it on the fly as you're giving it to us? Are you creating network design documents? And the good thing, and that's one of the reasons why I made this point about let's get somebody in who knows the environment like we do, Stealth or myself, who has done the assessment training, is we can, during the assessment phase, not the certification or not the pre-certification review, but during the consulting assessment gap analysis, we can help you point out what it is that you're missing. We can work with you to create these documents, to be ready and really have everything in a pile ready to go and give to the assessors when you're ready for the assessment.
But it comes back to the point of start now, because it is going to take time and effort to be able to get there. So Sanjeev, a couple of questions have come up relative to security. How do I control need to know using Prevail? Another, if I take an enclave approach to securing information, how do I ensure that CUI is not shared beyond those it is intended?
So I think, again, it's a combination of the tool and policies and procedures. So when you've essentially got, say, Prevail deployed to the folks that handle CUI, if you want to lock it down further, you put what we call as the trusted communities mode. So if the information is in a folder and they try to go and share it, the system will not allow them to share it to the folks that are beyond, the trusted community. If you try to send an email with the information to folks that are not in the trusted community, it will warn you. Now, there are no ironclad guarantees that if you decide, you get the warning and you nonetheless decide to do it, but that's a contravention of the policy. But the system has automatic safeguards built into it that prevent you from doing so unless you're doing so intentionally and maliciously. So that's a simple answer to the question.
Very good, thank you. And then it seems the point that, Dasha, you made relative to 6 months worth of documentation sounded an alarm bell with a lot of people looking at the questions that have come in. And I think summarizing all of those questions, I can formulate it in 2. How much documentation, but more important, if I'm starting now, how do I know what documentation I need to be preparing and compiling?
So how much documentation? For every single area in the CMMC, for every single one of the requirements, you need at least 2 out of those 3. So for example, let's say password. Let's say you do level 3 assessments, and I think you got over 100 requirements there. So let's take password. So you need to document that you're changing passwords frequently. So it's either interview, observe, or test. We are required as assessors to collect this evidence. So most of the time we're going to interview somebody. That's the easiest. And then we either need to observe or test. So in this case, I would ask either show me the group policy or show me the logs for specific or all assets that you have within the enclave or within the environment to show that you have changed the password every 90 days. So screenshots, logs, the GPO policy, all of that. So imagine if you got 117 requirements, you're going to have for all 117 requirements, at least 2 out of those 3 evidences that you need to collect. Now, of course, the interview part is not going to be done until the assessment, but screenshots and everything, you will have to be ready to give it on when asked for it. So, and then there was a second part of the question as well, right?
Right. Where is it that people can find the list of the documentation that is required? If somebody wants to start now, what do they need to be collecting?
So on the CMMC, if you go to the CMMC AB board or AB website, there is a link directly to the DoD that has the CMMC. It's a spreadsheet and a couple of Word PDF documents that has the requirements for each one of those. So you can literally say, okay, I need, or I want to be certified up to level 2 or level 3. And in that spreadsheet, you will be able to find exactly what it is that they are looking for. Now, in order to really know exactly what you're collecting, what is needed, your IT director, your security or compliance team, they will probably know. But yes, it will require somebody who has the know-how in that field.
And may I add, again, on the tools part, again, it can sound daunting, 117 controls, etc. But again, at the Prevail website, we have a CMMC white paper that goes into every single control. And again, for the storage and sharing of CUI, you will see there the control, how you're meeting it, and the language that you will provide to the assessor. So just the fact that you're using the tool and the language that you need to go provide shall be, very powerful evidence that you can share. So again, we encourage you to, if interested, go take a look at that, because that is in the spirit of simplifying these things, because otherwise these things can be sort of head spinners for most people. The point is to make your CUI secure, not necessarily to put insurmountable bureaucracy into your organization.
Exactly. Well said. And I know that there are a lot of good informational resources, both on the Prevail website and the Stealth ISS Group website. And unfortunately, we're at the top of the hour. A lot more questions. I think just based on some of the things that Dasha took away from the provisional assessor training, we could probably go on for another hour. I know that there will be a follow-up email addressing some of the questions we didn't get to, along with a link to the recording of this webinar that will be sent out by email to everyone who has registered. I want to thank all of you for attending today, and I want to thank our presenters, so Dasha Deckwerth and Sanjeev Verma, and their companies Stealth ISS Group and Prevail. You can find more information on Stealth ISS Group at stealth-iss.com and on Prevail at Prevail, PREVEIL.com. As I said, recording of this webinar will be available, and you can always reach out directly to Dasha and to Sanjeev. Their contact information appears on the slide that is just now on the screen. So again, thank you to all of you for joining us this afternoon, and please feel free to follow up with either Dasha or Sanjeev with any additional questions that you may have. Thank you.